Thank you, media, for coming in such short notice. I appreciate your effort. Yesterday, St. Paul's AME Church issued a lengthy statement on the work permit application for the Reverend Nicholas Genevieve Tweed that, whether intended or not, clouded the facts of the case. Although the employer of record for Reverend Tweed is the presiding elder of the Conference of the AME Church here in Bermuda, the statement issued by St. Paul's AME Church warrants a response. In considering this matter, it is important to keep in mind two incontrovertible overriding facts behind the minister's decision to uphold the denial of the work permit application. They are the failure of the employer to advertise the position as required for every work permit application, and the failure to provide accurate and complete information as required of every applicant. These facts provide the context of this statement. The church said that there was no mechanism within the AME Church to advertise for pastorates. This may be, and we recognize that many organizations, religious or otherwise, have worldwide recruitment policies. But the fact is that when it comes to Bermuda, all non-Bermudian appointments are subject to the Bermuda Immigration and Protection Act. All other churches and faith groups in Bermuda have accepted this policy, which is designed to make sure everyone is treated equally. We cannot have one rule for all churches and one rule for the Reverend Genevieve Tweed. External recruitment policies of private entities cannot dictate Bermuda's immigration policy, which exists to protect Bermudian opportunities in the workplace. Otherwise, there is no point of having a work permit policy. The church requested a waiver on advertising after the fact. The Immigration Board instructed them to advertise the position. The request was denied because the applicant did not meet the work permit policy criteria, which states that a waiver of advertising may be appropriate where the person is uniquely qualified for the position. The position would not exist if it were not for the applicant filling the job, or the success of the business would be detrimentally affected if the persons were to leave the business. Detrimentally affected means that jobs of Bermudians, spouses of Bermudians, or PRC holders would be put at risk and jeopardy. Lastly, the employee has to be an integral and key to income generation of the business by brokering deals or attracting and retaining clients or funds. Given the sensitive nature of this matter, the minister allowed the applicant time to make his case. From the moment the applicant filed late for his work permit renewal in July, the minister gave Reverend Tweed special authorization to continue working while the application was reviewed. She did so again in October, while his appeal was being considered. The church said the minister's reference to Reverend Tweed's incomplete 2013 application was irrelevant. But its relevance lies in its relationship to the 2016 application and other documents that, taken together, revealed inconsistent, inaccurate information about the Reverend's marital status and name. The work permit system, which exists to protect Bermudians' employment opportunities, cannot work if people applying to work here do not provide complete and accurate information. The church complained that Reverend Tweed's application should have been handled as a standard renewal. This might have been the case if the application had been accurate and complete, submitted on time, with questions answered and fees paid, and the position was advertised as is required. While the rules put in place for everyone are not followed, the applications become anything but standard. On that point, a comment was made yesterday, and I'd like to refer to Article 23 of the AME Church's Articles of Faith, which describes the church as an international Christian body with constituents around the world, and presumes the duty, loyalty, and patriotism of our constituents as citizens of sovereign nations to obey just laws, to recognize and respect the organizational structure, and to uphold the Constitution of the country or nation state in which its members hold the rights and privileges of citizenship. On the final note, as I said earlier, the employer of record is the Bermuda Conference of the AME Church and the presiding elder, and if she has any issues, any questions, she knows that the ministry's door is open and will be happy to provide any clarification that is required. Finally, all points mentioned in yesterday's statement by the St. Paul's AME Church will be addressed in detail as soon as Immigration Department's technical officers have completed the review of the entire statement. Thank you very much.
If a solution to this situation would be the minister accepting the fact that these mistakes were made and inviting the applicants to go back to square one, put forward advertising, the fees and everything else in the proper order and the correct documentation, would you be prepared to reconsider?
That's a decision for the minister and the ministry. I don't think your question is unreasonable, but I would prefer if the minister answers that question. She'll be back in the audit tomorrow, and I would suggest that you present that question to her then.
What is your reaction to the comments made by Chris Ferbert that if this is not resolved and if the airport matter is not dropped, then the America's Cup will be in jeopardy?
Obviously, that's not something that we wanted to hear. The community is very, very concerned about that, and hopefully we can arrive at some resolution to ensure that things do not progress to that level where the America's Cup and our economic stability is compromised.
Minister, you would agree that this issue is, or resolution of this issue is now of public interest. It is a public interest matter, correct?
Absolutely.
So would the government have any objection in releasing the correspondence between the minister and the senior immigration officers that handle this matter?
The data between the immigration officers and the minister is restricted data. If you want it, you have a process whereby you can get it through the public access to information.
Right, but you've already agreed it's a public interest matter, so should somebody have to file a PADA request? I understand a PADA request has been filed and it was rejected.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay,
Do you know
all right,
anything about that?
well, they're not allowed to say anyway,
Okay.
so
I'm not aware of that.
they can't really say who. But so I guess my next question has to do with the order of events in the way this was handled. I understand that the minister reviewed it, and then there was an appeal, and she was the one to decide on the appeal as well, correct? At what point did she initially get involved in this matter?
She got involved because, as I said earlier, the fact that the application came in a day before it expired. Normally, the rule says it has to be in 3 months to a month before it expires. Because it came in a day before it expired, the file was presented to her. Because at that point, the immigration laws and protocols had been compromised.
So she was involved upon application, basically.
Yes, because it was late.
Yeah, no, I understand that reason. And I'm trying to understand, sorry, I'm confused as to why the MPs are here, Ms. Scott and Mrs. Outerbridge.
They were concerned and they asked if they could come to give me some support, and I said, yeah. I mean, they are representatives, they're MPs, and they're part of government, and they just felt that they'd like to be here to support this endeavor.
The Premier's involvement, he had some talks with the Bishop between October, the appeal period, and the final decision of the Minister. What was that all about, if it was going through an administrative process?
It's my understanding, well, that's, first of all, you have to get all these details from the Premier,
Hmm.
because I was not a party to that conversation. But I know for a fact that if one wants to meet with the Premier, he's available to meet with anyone, be it the Bishop, be it you, be it me. That's just his nature. I'm aware that he was not involved in this immigration process, and as a consequence, him meeting with the Bishop had no influence on the decision made thus far.
But, I mean, there was communication between the Premier and the Bishop between October and
I am not 100% aware of the extent of the correspondence or communications, because I haven't.
Well, that
participated.
would be for if you want to send a request regarding the Premier's correspondence,
problem.
that's fine. You have a follow-up question?
Yes.
So Owen also had a question you
I'll
wanted to
move
follow
on.
up with, yeah.
You ready, Owen?
Yeah, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, thank you. The Home Affairs Minister has some discretion on on approving these applications, correct?
Under the Act, the answer is yes.
And some of the waiver conditions that you've discussed in your statement seem to me to be geared towards commercial enterprises. I mean, you talk about, you know, making money
Okay,
and that kind of stuff.
let me bring that
Yeah.
to the church environment. And I'll start off by stating, as I said earlier,
Mhm.
in the commercial arena, the CEOs, the key employees, the employees who are crucial to the income and revenues of the company is exempt and can apply for the waiver. In the church community, it still applies, but it applies for the bishops of the Anglican Church, the bishops of the Catholic Church, the presiding elder of the Bermuda Conference, if they were expatriate. But it so happens that they are all Bermudians. But anytime the Archbishop of Canterbury says, I want to put in an expatriate bishop for the Anglican Church, then they have to apply for a waiver to have him come. We're not telling them who to appoint. We're saying, as you are a guest worker, you have to follow immigration laws. And so, for the church, we go down and say there are, 50 churches in Bermuda, and everybody's a minister. So they are not key employees, as in the sense in the business community. They are like vice presidents of a company. You have Minister Amy Church, St. Paul's Church, Christ Church Ward, St. Mark's Church. The ministers come and go. And every one of those applicants at the church level have had to apply for the renewal of their work permit since the change in 2018 policy. Sorry, 2014 policy, sorry.
Okay. The church would say these are, in effect, sort of spiritual appointments. I'm not religious, but I've heard that
Yes.
argument from the bishop himself, you know, that this is a itinerant elder and it's a calling, it's not a job per se. Would you agree that there seems to be, that the policy may not quite fit in that arena? And is there any thoughts within government that it might need to be tweaked a bit?
I do not agree with that sentiment, quite frankly. The ministers and priests, they, like me, take their roles as a career. They are called, yes, but it's a career that they have chosen It's a profession that they have chosen, and because they want to work in Bermuda, they should follow Bermuda's immigration laws.
But the question of being uniquely qualified, that's something that, as far as the church is concerned, only the bishop can decide, correct?
Yes, and we're
I mean, from a
saying,
religious perspective, I don't know if you're religious, I'm not, but I'm
Well,
just saying,
so we're saying,
you know,
we're
I
not going to tell,
respect the religion.
we're not going to tell the bishop who
Mm.
to hire or who not to appoint. But we're saying, under Bermuda's immigration laws, if you are to be a priest in Bermuda and you have been appointed by your overseas bishop, then you must adhere to our immigration laws as in any other country.
And you saw no reason why that policy should change.
No, I don't.
Now, when it was reviewed in 2014, I'm sorry, Brian, was there consultation with the religious community?
As far as I know, the answer was yes.
And do you know who was consulted?
I don't have the details here, I don't. No, I don't.
Okay, I was told yesterday that there wasn't any consultation.
Well, we can get back to you on that, but I'm not aware of it.
Well, can you tell me what the difference was between the old policy and what was actually changed? Was that the matter of advertising the
It
past?
was a matter of advertising because we had a lot of issues, and as we said earlier, there were inconsistencies in how the advertising requirement was used prior to then. And so all the stakeholders got around the table and said, we have to eliminate this inconsistency so everyone's playing on an equal playing field. And the unions, the public service commissions, the business people, and I'm told some of the religious people got together and agreed on the policy that the only person that can waive the advertising requirement would be those people as defined in my earlier presentation.
Now, you mentioned earlier inconsistencies with the Reverend Tweed's name and his marital status. Were these the inconsistencies mentioned by Patricia Golden Pamplin in her previous statements?
Yes.
And are these the only inconsistencies?
Not that I'm aware of.